Seven connections to seven directions. Seven connections, and we don't stop. We don't stop. We don't stop. In our hearts and minds, we bow to the now. We honor you, the life, the true. Great mystery. Come slow us down, bring us back around, and connect us to the inner sound. Great circle of life, you're amazing. Who are we to judge your forms? It's you shines beyond all known.
Hello, everyone. This is Holly Million, the founder and executive director of Artists United. Artists United is an artist-led movement for the economic and political empowerment of artists, and we are working to create the largest network of artists in all disciplines the world has ever seen. Our job is to help make sure that artists' basic needs are met and also to empower them to create excellent art, to share resources, to share connections, to help each other. And also, when we've created a large network of artists, to harness the power of that network for advocacy for the rights of artists, and also to use the power of that collective art for social good, and to apply it to things like economic sanity, environmental sanity, peace, justice, and all the things that all of us could use a little bit more of, especially right now. And with that lead-in, I've perfectly set myself up to introduce our next guest, Chris McGrew. Welcome to the show, Artists United Television, Chris.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm very excited to have this interview with you. I have known you just for a little while, Chris, but right from the very beginning on our first phone call, I could tell that I was talking to a member of my soul tribe. You obviously believe the same things that I believe, that the things that motivated me to form Artists United. And I think there's so much potential for us to work together. We've been talking nonstop about different things. So I thought you should be on this show and people should hear about you personally as an artist and also about the work that you're doing with X-Racer. So I thought we could start by your telling a bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do.
All right. Well, I'm a musician and engineer and producer, and I've been playing professionally in San Francisco as a drummer for the past 30 years, since I moved here from Chicago in the middle of college. And I was lucky enough to study with a really great bass player in a jazz ensemble as an elective in college, and it just kind of woke me up and made me realize that after school I realized that was what I wanted to do, and I just dove in, and mainly I decided this was what I could work 14 hours a day doing and be happy. So, and that's still true. All these years later, I don't mind putting in the long days. I like what I'm doing. So we help bands, finish their records, and my bands get a chance to work in the studio, and make records at a really high level. And, yeah, so I guess.
What's the name of the studio? Tell us about it. Where is it located?
I'm lucky enough to be a partner in Hyde Street Studio C, which we're affectionately referring to as Wally's Hideout. Originally, it was started by Wally Hyder in 1969. It's the oldest studio in town, and it's been home to some of the greatest recordings that shaped the San Francisco sound. The Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, Cream, all these bands recorded, not Cream actually, I don't know why I said that, but Jimi Hendrix recorded there, and so the list goes on. It's Green Day, Train, through each decade there have been, a lot of really fantastic records made there. And it's because the acoustics of the room are fantastic, and it's just well designed at a time when that was necessary to even do the job, because you're trying to record the whole band with one mic or two mics. So the sound in the room, it still makes a difference, but it was really integral to the studio back in the day. They don't really do them quite that beautifully now. It's sometimes people pay less attention to how the sonic properties of the room than the gear that goes in there. So we're lucky enough to have a classic room with really great acoustics, and we kind of run it like a clubhouse, and each of us that are partners in the thing bring our clients through, and we open it up to outside engineers, give them a really good rate, let them come in and bring their clients in. So it's kind of Hyde Street is still like a haven for us artists, because it's just kind of like Lord of the Flies over there.
That doesn't sound like a haven.
I guess that wasn't a good, but it was like the kids are running the show, I guess is what I mean, and at least without all the sort of socio-political problems in that story, I guess. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a really good bunch of supportive people, and there's multiple studios in the building. And so you're able to kind of cross paths with the other people working on things. And it's great environment to get a chance to work in, and you're in connection with a bunch of producers and writers and session players, and it's I'm in heaven when I'm there. So that's been my main focus. But in the process of doing that, I kind of came to realize that, wow, these artists that are recording here have no idea how they're going to get a return on investment for this recording they've done, and many of them were just kind of happy to get it posted online somewhere and get it out, and to me that always falls flat, when you do all this work on a creative project, and it seems like many artists just fail to think about what happens after you have completed the recording,
Oh, for sure. I'm a filmmaker, and we oftentimes don't think ahead of how the film's going to get out or how you make a return on the money you put into the film. So I know how that happens.
Oh, I mean, we were working on a record with my band. I play in a band called Pamela Parker's Fantastic Machine, and we just released an album in February. But over the last year of the process of writing and recording that album, we have begun to sort of think about these things and what are we going to do to get this thing, out to people, because we were really making what we think is a good record, and we worked hard on it, and all of us are kind of tired of making records that are really well made, but we have struggled to get the wide audience that might be possible. And I think we're at this time now where things have bottomed out in our industry in a way that's never happened to film, and we have opportunities because of that. There are new tools available, and the big players that kind of dominated the scene of disseminating music and building audience are just gone now. So
What happened? I know this is probably something that people have heard about, but I think it's good to say it again. What exactly changed, and when did this happen?
Well, I mean, with the advent of streaming as a way of getting or downloading BitTorrents, even in the early days, it weakened the record industry's hold on music as a product. And they kind of applied a business model to music that sort of like what you would do if you were selling a widget or something, and music has this ineffable value that goes beyond its physical property, and it has social value, and there are all these things that are hard to record on a balance sheet that are important with regard to music. And I think that's the devaluation of music that's come about, and it was the fault of the labels for turning it into this unit product and forcing us to sort of apply rules of economics that manufacturers might use, when in fact our role is much bigger in society than a manufacturer of a product, and our value is deeper. And so I just realized we needed to find a way to kind of leverage that with these new tools and start to figure out how to kind of become a little more savvy about the business part of things, and start to build some tools that we could use when we make records, so that we can give ourselves a chance to build an audience and make a career out of this thing that makes sense. Because most of us that are making films or music have to at some point reconcile with the fact that this plan doesn't make a whole lot of sense financially, but we do it because it makes sense in all these other ways that I'm talking about. And that's why we're so deeply committed to what we do, even though it's a hard road, money-wise. And I'm just committed to solving these problems for myself as an artist and for the projects that I work on. And beyond that, I mean, in doing that, you have to build a big team. In order for that team to function, it needs to keep rolling. You know, it's not like they're going to wait around for my next record and everybody will still be a team. So it got me thinking about, well, there's this great need for these problems to be solved. Like there's all these monetary barriers to entry that prevent us from doing the publicity and the marketing, from getting to the finish line, you know, on this project. And so that's kind of where we were coming from with the name of our company that we started in January. We launched an LLC called X Racer Productions. And we want to leverage our network of amazing musicians and producers and engineers, our sort of home base at a world famous studio, and you know, and a distribution contract that I was able to work out based on having those things. And so we've been able to craft a plan that's really set up in the artist's favor in terms of what happens to the rights, the copyright, and the royalties, and how the money gets divided. Typically in the past, the labels wanted to control the copyright and the publishing, which are the big, most important elements of your property. And so artists were left with this impossible choice of total obscurity or giving up the farm. And we're trying to provide an opportunity to like incentivize your distributor and your team by giving up a small amount of your royalties, but never giving up your artist royalties, your copyright, or your publishing. Because we want to help artists make money. We don't want to, and we want that tool to work that way for us too.
So the name of the company is X Racer, right? That's what does the name mean, and why did you choose that for this particular company?
Because we're trying to help artists get to the finish line. You know, it's like it's the long process, and I just think that with the labels kind of going away, and not that they served very well the artists that were lower on the totem pole, you know, we feel like we can take those artists that are at a mid-level, help them develop their craft and their recording product, and put out something that's going to set them apart. And by extension, our catalog will grow and will be set apart this way, and we'll be able to help artists move forward so that, I mean, the finish line really is when you get paid enough so that you can make this your life and you can keep making this over and over again. You know, you get to the next race and you can run through that process and get all the way home. But what ends up happening to artists very often is the tail end of the project stretches out. The last 20% becomes half of the length of production time sometimes. I know that happens in films too.
Yeah, and writing and many other things.
Yeah, and so, you know, we want to help expedite that process and get people across that finish line. And that means your music is set up to be monetized, and you have a team of people selling the music, not just posted on some distribution site and, you know, you're hoping for the best. And you know, there are surprisingly few options like that out there, especially ones that tilt the pressure points in the contract in the artist's favor. And we did that because we're the artists. So it's very easy for us to justify this kind of thing because we feel confident that we're going to make money on our own content. We don't necessarily need to profiteer off of yours. But we feel like if we structure things in the right way, the small amount of royalties that we'll take for helping you do all that stuff can be put back into, you know, our ability to promote, you know, will help us have more ability to promote events, showcases, and do things that would move the artists forward and give them more opportunities.
So I'm hearing that you guys are artists. So there's more than you're not the only principal. There's others. Are they all musicians as well?
Yeah, everybody involved is either a music maker or somebody who is like Sean. He's not a music maker. He's our business guy, Sean Ford. But he's the only one that isn't actually actively involved in creating music, but he's committed like nobody I've ever met to helping people get that done. And he's very knowledgeable about music as a, former label owner, and he's a fan of music. He's, it's very important to him. So I kind of feel like he represents the listeners, and he kind of gives us that perspective in the inside of the company too. So I consider that, just as valuable, but it's really structured to be for and by artists, by those of us who are making stuff.
Well, Artists United can get behind that because we are an artist-led organization as well, a movement, and our inspiration, in fact, for the name Artists United came from United Artists, which, as you may know, was artists taking control of their content and their creations. They were the actors and directors of their time in the early 20th century. So it was Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Charlie Chaplin.
Artists who got enough means to say, okay, I want to actually be in control of this and vertically integrate a little bit,
Yes, and they were basically fighting back against the studio system at the time, which gave the studios complete control over the artist's work, and they didn't have any say about it. It would just be freely used to make money. So they were ahead of their times and very visionary, and it was inspiring to think it was over a century ago, that the artists were trying to do that. So I'm kind of, I'm completely behind you, and we're talking about partnering. I think we should be partners, that the people that are empowering the artists should be working together. So how, can you tell me a little bit more, maybe also for the listeners, if they want to work with X-Racer, how does that work? What would their experience be like if they came into the company to work with you?
Right. Well, what we do is right now we're providing production services for artists. So say you've got a record that you've done and it's ready to be released. We can help you, get through the process of getting the copyright done, making sure that it's released properly and disseminated globally, and have you set up to receive money directly from our distributor. And that's sort of one of our main important services that we provide. And then beyond that, we also have a podcast that we do every 2 weeks. So we can kind of give you an opportunity to be validated by a third party, here's this artist, and play some music live in the studio, play a track, and then have that as content that you can take and feed to other radio outlets for little interview snippets. You can take sound bites out, and it's just, you can use the in-studio performance as a single. So we're trying to facilitate artists having more work out there, like getting their work out in the public, getting themselves some content that they can use to promote themselves. And then also just, kind of using our network to promote them too. And so the experience for them would be something like this. You kind of reach out to us by the email or call us or come to the studio or whatever. And we'll take a listen to your record and we'll figure out what it needs. And, quite often these days people are coming in with recordings that weren't really made by a producer. And, they're made in a home studio sometimes, or quite often. And sometimes they don't have proper metering. And I was talking about the behavior of the sound in the room might be telling them lies, with the way the sound bounces around. So, we'll help them kind of assess where the project is and what they might need to do in order to complete it, and help them find the right producer if they need to, the right engineer, the right session players, or just help them get it to the right mastering engineer. Almost everybody that comes to us is coming to us, with, projects that need something. It's pretty rare that someone comes to us and we're like, oh wow, this is ready to go, let's put it right out. So that's what the artist development part is, a really big part of what we're I think what we're going to be engaged in going forward. And then beyond that, once we have artists kind of going through that process, they're going to filter up and eventually they'll be our featured artist. And that artist is going to be the one that, or handful. Right now it's one at a time. When we grow and we'll scale up, we'll have more people handling this, but it's going to be sort of a personalized approach to trying to help them build their audience and find their niche. And we'll have a data analytics team working on helping them assess where their views and listens have come from and how to follow up and retarget. And we're learning fast on all the latest techniques for marketing the music. And so eventually we'll develop that as we get further on. So what we're talking about is giving artists the tools to run a business, instead of just giving artists the tools to finish the song.
It sounds good. It sounds good to me, Chris. How can people contact you? What's your website, or is there an email that they could contact you at?
Yeah, if you go to xracerproductions.com, and at the bottom.
That's letter X, RACER, productions.com.
Yes, productions with an S, xracerproductions.com. And if you go there and scroll to the bottom, there's an engage with us part. You can click on there and give us your email, and we'll get in touch with you, and you can ask us any questions you want about what we do. And, we can send you an artist agreement. You can check it out. You can listen to the podcast and hear some of the folks that we're working with. And, it's kind of a personal process right now. We're kind of a boutique thing at the moment. But we're going to be building our catalog fast and, offering lots of great music for the music supervisors and the sync licensing folks to, place our music. And, hopefully we're going to find ways to get bands, wider reach by placing some songs in some films with your people. I'm really hoping that we can figure out, because one of the greatest things that can happen to a band is for a song to get placed in something that's viewed by people outside the music community. It just, if it's a commercial or an independent film or, any kind of film, TV show, that just raises the profile and legitimacy of your band instantly. And suddenly it's easier for the booking guy to get the talent buyers interested. And it's easier for, fans to get rallied and hyped up because they feel like they're part of something that's big, and it conveys things are happening. So I'm hoping that as we work together, we can find lots of ways to help each other achieve that kind of clarity of purpose and validation with the public.
I don't have to be convinced. Of course, Chris, as you know, I'm all about the collaboration, and the whole point is that we've come to a time where artists have to come together in all kinds of ways, and we all have to be collaborating a lot more than we ever have. And I know these are values that you really hold dear. I'm going to give you an opportunity to get your full-on hammer and sickle out right now and just go for it and talk about your subversive ideas of unity and cooperation. Go ahead.
I think it's, the way I like to look at it is that we are exiting the phase of the independent artist, and we're really coming to an understanding that we've always been interdependent. We actually do need each other to work together, which is why our motto for our slogan for our company is "Together We're Stronger." So, the whole idea is that we're going to be working to build something that couldn't be built just by yourself. The big team that it takes to promote your album, your single, or your film, not to mention the people it took to make it. It's a pretty large group of people. And so we can sort of exemplify a little bit what the humans of the world need to do, which is recognize that we have to work together, in order to solve some of the problems that we face right now. Maybe it's always been true in the post World War II age. I think it's something we have kind of failed to realize, is that, globalization has gotten to the point now where the companies and the militaries have completed the process, and such that the global economy is so intertwined that the old, protectionist measures that used to get used in mercantilist, approach to having power, they don't work anymore. As we can see with the current administration's tariffs, it's not working like in the way that it would have to bolster, an internal economy, because there isn't one anymore. The supply chain is spread all over the world. And what I'm getting at is that in order for the human beings of the planet to get our interests met and our needs met and our interests like put forward as policy, we have to speak with the more collective voice, because the corporations are, and they're getting results right now. And the results are that priorities are swung completely to money. And, we're not really taking into account all the things that don't show up on the balance sheet. And so those of us who do care about those things, back to where I was in the beginning, we value community and we value like the ability to recognize massive power when people come together. And if the people of the world demand that we switch our energy to a sustainable plan, if it's a global, cry of protest, like we must do this now, the governments will have to follow. It doesn't require violence. It doesn't require revolution. It requires a change in our understanding of how powerful we are when we speak together. And I think the artists, when we put on a concert, you feel that. You feel it right there in the, wow, we're all focused on the same thing, and there's something big happening because of that. And, it's, I feel like I'm here on the planet to be a voice for that kind of, to inspire that kind of collective voice, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's the time for it. And yes, but the art is a real unifying force for humanity, and it gives people hope and inspiration. It helps them to see what the needs are. It helps to give them the motivation and direction. So we're very much on the same page, and I'm very happy to have you on Artists United Television, Chris, and to hear about X-Racer and the Hyde Street Studios, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary, I believe, this year. So you will have some events that people will be able to check out.
October 12th, we're going to have a big party, block party celebration.
And what's the website for Hyde Street Studios?
If you go to hydestreetstudios.com, you can check out the website there. And you can also go to hydestreetstudioc.com. There's another website for our studio upstairs. But we're all affiliated, and we're working together on celebrating 50 years of, supporting music and facilitating great recordings.
And then you're also in Pamela Parker's Fantastic Machine. Is there a website for the band as well?
PamelaParkerRocks.com. And that band is, we're getting ready to go up and play the High Sierra Music Festival this weekend in Quincy, California. And we'll be in Soda Springs, California at the end of the month for the Guitar Fish Festival. And we frequently play around the Bay Area, and we'll be going to the East Coast in September, do some shows out there. So definitely check out our music. Our album's streamable. It's on all the platforms. And, we encourage you to check it out and get in touch with us. And,
you also said you work 14 hours a day. I understand why now, because of all the various projects and things that you're doing. It's a lot.
Time, but the time goes fast when you're really excited to be finally having opportunity to execute things you built on for your whole adult life. So I don't feel tired at the end of those days usually.
I think you have more energy than most people, Chris, but I'm glad you're on our side. That's really, really extremely inspiring. But before we end the interview, I just want to give you a chance, if there's anything you haven't covered yet that you might want to share with our members.
Let's see.
Parting words of advice or any other information they should have?
All I would say is, remember that now is time for us to kind of step up and be more committed. And, I guess the fundamental thing that I would say is that I've come to realize that everything that's come to me as a result of being in music has come because I've just been willing to serve something. It's almost like a truth of every world religion too. It's that if you are more focused on what you're offering and what you're bringing to the situation, you'll be rewarded in ways you couldn't have even thought to ask for, and so that's happened to me at every turn. And I would just encourage other people to help each other more, promote each other's bands, go out of your way to make other people look good on social media. And instead of focusing on, purporting some idyllic life. Get people out to other bands events and other films, and go and support each other. Go to each other's shows, and this is going to really help us just in the most basic way. And I think we've been sort of tribalized by the record labels, and made to think that we're competing against each other more than we really are. And we need to build a scene around this collective voice that emphasizes what all human beings care about, which, we really are all the same, like in terms of what we need, I believe.
Well said, Chris. I really loved what you just said. That was a great way to end this interview. You're definitely an Artists United member, member of the Soul Tribe. We support you. We'll be making sure people know about Hyde Street Studios, Pamela Parker's Fantastic Machine, and also X-Racer. Everybody check out those websites. Go visit, get in touch with Chris. And thank you so much, Chris, for being on Artists United Television. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thanks a lot, Holly. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Chris.